If you've ever thought that you can't be a 7, 8, even 9-figure business because you sell other people's stuff, I want you to think again. Because today's episode with Dean Salakas is going to show you how the most commoditized good, a niche where you can buy this stuff at every grocery store, at every department store, pretty much everywhere, can in fact be a hugely successful and wildly profitable business if you think about things a little bit differently. Hey there, and welcome to the Bringing Business to Retail podcast. If you're looking to get more sales, more customers, master your marketing, and ultimately take control of your retail or e-commerce business, then you're in the right place. I'm Selena Knight, a retail growth strategist and multi-award-winning store owner whose superpower is uncovering exactly what your business requires to move to the next level. I'll provide you with the strategies, the tools, and the insight you need to scale your store. All you need to do is take action. Ready to get started? Hey there, welcome back to today's episode of the Bringing Business to Retail podcast. Yes, I still have sexy, croaky, gravelly flu voice, aka like Phoebe from Friends when she got the flu. Are you old enough to... Friends has made a resurgence, right? I was going to say, are you old enough to remember that episode of Friends? But actually, you don't even need to be old because it's all come back. And regardless of how old you are, you've probably seen that episode. Was that the episode where she sung the Smelly Cat song? I'm going to have to go and Google that. Anyway, Selena Knight, retail growth strategist here, post-read gift fairs, that post-trade show flu, that if you've been there, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. Here, reporting for duty in what can only be described as my total geek out episode for the last month or so. The funny thing about today's episode is, well, hey, everything's got to be fun because Dean is from the party people and parties are all about having fun. But the funny thing about this episode is before we meet to come on a podcast, I do a 15-minute pre-qualifier call just to make sure that the person is the right fit. We get a bit of a gist of where the conversation is going to go. Sometimes it doesn't always end up going there, but just to make sure that everything is on the level. Dean and I spoke for nearly an hour in that 15-minute pre-qualifier. I could probably play that entire episode as a podcast. However, he did divulge some intellectual property during our private conversation, so I'm not going to do that. But in today's episode, he shares so much with you. You've got to stick with this because this is one of those episodes, the overnight success episode that took 15 years. Dean and his brother took over the family party business. And, realistically, they had one shop with his mum and dad, one shop. They were picking and packing orders. But his mum was a freaking revolutionary. I did not know any of this about his family. I can't wait for you to hear all about what his mum does. I took Lana to a play on the weekend at the Opera House. It was called Fangirls, and it is all about this young teenager who falls in love with a pop star. And what I most loved about that was as we walked out of the theatre, I said to Lana and her friends, who was your most favourite character in the play? And they all said, the mum. And I said, oh, what was it about the mum? And they said, oh, she slayed. That is what all the kids are saying when someone is super awesome. So I'm going to say that Dean's mum, I didn't actually ask her name, but Dean's mum slayed when it came to business. I want you to hear all about how she started out, some of the crazy things that she thought of that they implemented, what happened when Dean and his brother took over the business, the crappy stuff that they encountered, why they had to shut down their extremely profitable business, not once, not twice, but 3 separate times, what you can learn from all of their mistakes, but also the simple fact that they took a mid-level 6-figure business and grew it to a ridiculously popular store, the biggest store in the whole of Australia, hugely profitable, hugely successful. And they did it with no external funding. They had no venture capital. I am completely in awe of the things that the party people are doing when it comes to collaborations with shopping centers, with other brands. We didn't even get on to that conversation because after an hour, I was thinking, all right, this is usually a lot longer than our normal episodes. So I pulled the conversation up, and we will have to have Dean back for another conversation of how they use collaborations, how they partner with people to be constantly innovating without having to spend any money. Guys, when it comes to grassroots and growing a business, Dean and his brother are the bomb. And if they can do it, you can too. I'm pretty sure that you're going to walk away from today's episode with a really different view on how you can scale your business. Simple little things that you can be implementing right now that will make you grow. The changes in the way that you think about money and investing in your business and profitability, those were key for me. And we also talk about inventory management and curating your product ranges. So if you are ready to step up and be the CEO in your business and start with tackling the inventory in your business, make sure you head over to selinaknight.com/stock and grab my inventory management training, where I am going to walk you through why stuff doesn't sell in the first place, the formula that you need to know to get rid of it. I'm also going to share a bunch of different ways that you can move old stock. And I've got some bonuses in there. Plus, I've got a case study to show you how one retailer used what she learned to go viral on YouTube. You can grab that over at selinaknight.com/stock. And before we head into today's episode, just a warning that there are a few little curse words and salty language inside of this episode. So if you have a little people listening, you might want to pop the headphones in for this episode. Alrighty, let's jump in today with Dean from the Party People. Dean Salakas from the Party People is in the house. Welcome, Dean. I have to say, I've never, ever been so excited to have somebody on the show. I mean, I've had a few celebrities. They've always been scary. But I laugh at the fact that you and I had a 15-minute podcast qualifying conversation that went for 45 minutes. And I am so proud of everything that you guys have accomplished.
Oh, so thanks so much. That's very humbling to be put above a couple of celebrities.
Well, hello, Chief Party Dude. That is a job description in and of itself, and we'll talk about that in a minute. But for those people who do not know who the Party People are, because maybe they're not in Australia, tell us about, well, obviously you sell party supplies. That part's pretty obvious. But what I really want to jump into is how you have grown this brand, because your story is so similar to so many people who are listening to this, and they kind of get a bit stuck. And I want to talk about how you have managed to drag the Party People into the 21st century and beyond, and been so innovative, done so much with what is really a very generic product.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, look, it's a good question you ask. I love where we're starting with this, because I mean, like a lot of people that I meet, especially in retail and innovative people, like, the focus in the early years for us was just kicking ass. We just like, and we don't care what people think. It's just like, let's just be the best party business we can be and just go hard. And we actually don't want people to know what we're doing, because that means we can fly under the radar and just smash it, And a lot of businesses are in that boat. They don't really care. They're doing it for themselves, and they don't really care what people think, and just want to build a great business. But I got a bit of coaching along the way when someone said, "Well, Dean, you guys are doing some amazing things. Why don't you talk about them? Why aren't you out in the media? Why aren't you?" And I'm like, I don't want to talk about them. I don't want people knowing what I'm doing. And the response was, "I think you're going about it all wrong. Like, you need to think about your personal branding. You need to think about getting yourself out there in the media, because that'll be good for business. The more you put yourself out there, the more PR, the more attention, the better it is for business." So, we went through the first 3 or 4 years doing nothing in the media, and, we were going through triple-digit growth and all this sort of stuff, but we just didn't want anyone to know about it. To completely turning that on its head and going, well, let's change that focus. And I got a bit of coaching saying, put yourself out there, do stuff with celebrities, get on TV, all that sort of stuff. Do podcasts like this, and the more you do, the better for your personal brand, the better for the business brand. There's a direct correlation there in what the outcomes you'll get, and just do as much of it as you can. So, then I started focusing on that and putting a bit of attention into being the face and promoting the brand and really getting out there. And it did result in business benefits. So, yeah,
I mean, you guys have won loads of awards. I judged some of those awards,
yep.
but you come from pretty humble beginnings. Like the Party People wasn't always this giant behemoth of a business that it always was. So tell us about how, like, your mum and dad started the business, didn't they?
Yeah, my mum started as a clown. She used to go to kids' parties and she'd do the whole thing, right? She bought chocolate crackers and clean up afterwards. And then, in the middle of all of that, she'd be entertaining the kids, magic tricks and all that stuff. Clowns are a bit more scary these days. Back then, they were more fun. So that's what she did, and then she decided to open up a party shop, and that sort of grew from there, and it was a small business. And then, as a kid, I worked in the family business from pretty much from 4 years old, doing a few things that kids can do. And then, kind of grew from there. And in 1998, my mum decided to open an online party store. She decided that was a good idea. My grandfather thought that was crazy and that was stupid, and we should just spend heaps of money on Yellow Pages and forget this website stuff.
1998, what a pioneer.
Yeah, my mum had some good ideas, and yeah, so she was a pioneer from the start, and we did it. We launched the party store, and she gave that to me to do. She said, "Here, you figure out, you do the image stuff, get the images up there. Here's all the fields you have to fill in to add products." And we worked with a bunch of uni students to develop the whole thing.
I've got to ask you, as someone who came, like I was 9 years later than your mum. What was the first e-commerce platform that you guys used?
Oh, well, there was no platforms.
No platform.
Yeah, there was no such thing as a platform back then. IT guys built it with IT code,
Flash. You had Flash,
didn't you? Flash, yeah, all that stuff, Flash. And
how did you get people, one, to the website, but two, to trust you to buy things on the website? Because I had my first e-commerce store in 2007, and even then it was very difficult to get people to put their credit card details onto a website. So can we just dig into that for a minute? Because this is pioneering stuff. Like, you guys have been around pretty much since the inception of e-commerce, and I didn't even realize that. How did you navigate that right at the beginning?
Yeah, so we built the website, I guess, as a start. And the idea, my mum's whole idea was very basic, and I think it's still very true today. Like, her whole thing was, I want to build a website because we have such a great product range, and I want to offer that to everyone in Australia, particularly people who work long hours and can't get into a store, or live in remote areas that can't access the store. So that was her idea. Now, we built the website. It didn't exactly take off like a bullet train or anything. I think we got one order the first month, and that we were like, "Whoa, yeah, how exciting! Can't wait to pick the next order." And it was very slow. It was very slow going. One a month turned into one a week, turned into one a day, turned into one every couple of hours, to constantly pressing refresh, and there was new orders there, and it kind of grew from there. But it was kind of, if you build it, they will come type thinking, I guess. Mm-hmm. And they did slowly. I think, and probably the initial people were people that kind of knew our business and knew what we did, so there was a bit of trust there. And then as internet itself became more popular to do shopping, it kind of expanded.
Remind me, did we have dial-up in 1998?
Yeah,
I feel like we had dial-up.
Yeah.
How long did it take for the pages to load?
I can't even remember, to be honest. It was that long ago. But yeah, no, it was pretty bad. I remember sitting at home during school, because I was in school doing this,
wow.
in front of my computer with the big fat screen, and it was just like, it was pretty interesting times, and using Corel Draw to etch the pictures, and that was pretty tricky. Back then there was no tools where you could make it obvious. You had to zoom in and etch it all out. And it was a very different time back then, and there was not a lot of tools around to help. But that was part of the challenge and the fun, that we were just sort of trying to figure out better ways to do things. And we just kind of grew as things changed.
I think that innovative spirit, and we'll come back to that conversation, but that innovative spirit from your mum has clearly continued right the way throughout your brand. But you were still in school doing the website. At what point did you officially become part of the business?
Yeah, look, I think it was a gradual thing. Like as a 4-year-old, I was putting sand in bags, and then when high school, as I grew older, I grew up, had responsibilities for certain merchandising, certain sections in the store. To then, got my driver's license to doing deliveries. The website thing came along, and they said, this is your responsibility. Get up products, just do as much as you can. And I enjoyed it, right? I was in school, and this was something cool and interesting. I mean, it's still a bit of work, but I enjoyed kind of building that. So that was fun, learning how to do that. And then, because I had to figure it out all myself. So and Google wasn't even around.
Was Google
I think
even
Google
No.
had just launched in the US around the same time we did. So Google
Yeah, it was like Ask Jeeves.
Yeah, Ask Jeeves. And I think Yahoo was around then. We used a bit of Yahoo. And there's some other random ones that don't really have any traction today. But
did you get paid?
Oh, not really.
Did your parents pay you for all this?
No, not really.
No. Okay. So when did you officially become a paid part of the business?
Look, I think I got paid for weekend work and stuff like that when I was doing it. So not really in the e-commerce role, I really didn't get paid, but I'd say probably around just after I left high school when I did sort of work in the business, because I started uni then and I was working on school, on uni break and trying to earn money and trying to pay for my uni and all that sort of stuff. So, and fun partying every weekend. So pretty much then that's when I sort of started working properly and getting paid, I guess, a proper wage.
Your role is chief party dude, but in terms of business growth, where do you sit in the, COO, CEO, CMO? What letters would you associate with yourself?
Look, I'd say I'm a co-CEO. So my brother's the other side of the business. I guess he's probably more operations, but certainly from decision-making and strategy point of view, we're equal in that. So definitely co-CEOs, and it's very much, I guess, the dynamic, I don't know if you want to go too much into it, but the dynamic was or is that, he manages operations, and that's his portfolio. And, there's about 20, 30 people that report through him. And then I'm everything that's not operations, essentially, which is, finance, marketing, IT, web, all that stuff, that all buying systems, they all report through me. And, I manage that team, and that's the guys that report in through me. So that's kind of our division of responsibilities. And I guess in a way, the dynamic is that he's my boss and I'm his boss. So I'm always questioning what's going on in operations, and he's always questioning what's going on in every other part of the business. And, if I'm doing financial modeling or presenting end of month or whatever it is, he's always telling me I'm doing a crap job and nitpicking what I'm doing.
Keeping and you accountable.
Yeah, he's telling me what I'm doing shit, and I'm telling him what he's doing shit, basically. At least we've got that, got that dynamic.
So who do you think is the biggest innovator?
In what aspect? Between us, or?
Yeah, between the two of you, who's doing all the thinking big?
Oh, look, that's probably more my role. I wouldn't say it's exclusively, because definitely it comes from both of us. My probably role is the idea. The ideas come from me because I am in that retail community more. I'm seeing what's going on. A little bit more of it comes from there, and the strategy. But then, we get this dynamic where we sit down and then we play around with those ideas, and that's where sort of the innovation and all that happens between the two of us bouncing it. And it can come from either of us. It can be one of us saying, "Hey, this is a great idea," and then the other one sort of coming along the journey, or the other, it could be me or it could be him. It could be either of us. What we do tend to do is try to get one of us to then play devil's advocate, because, if we both love an idea, we start thinking, oh, I've got to temper this down a bit. So one of us has to sit in that role, and we'll pick either of us to then go, you know what, you have to be stop loving this. You need to start hating
stop
it.
Being the cheerleader.
Tell me why we shouldn't do it. Yeah, tell me why we shouldn't do it. You play that role at the moment. And then we play that out, because I think you need that sometimes. Otherwise, we just both get excited about something, and we love shiny new toys, so...
I call my husband, and I've said this many, many times, he's the cheerleader. In my business, he's the cheerleader, but in real life, he's always I'm like, let's do this. And he's the person who'll go, there's some steps that you need to, have you thought about
Yeah.
Don't rain on my parade, okay?
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. I reckon I'm pretty safe saying you're like Australia's leading party supplier. Would that be correct?
Yeah.
So you've managed to grow that from one physical store with your pioneering e-commerce site to being in so many places, it's ridiculous. And I want to talk about how you have managed to do that, because scaling a business is difficult. Scaling a business without external funding. We often talk about how companies grow broke. So they go through that fast growth that you were just talking about, but then they don't have the money. Like there's all these things that all of a sudden you didn't have to spend money on before, but now you do. And so you need to find that money from somewhere. And
then on top of that, there's the mistakes you make.
Oh,
which cost you
all
money.
the mistakes that you make. So
there's plenty of them.
Tell us about that journey. Like, at what point do you think the business just went, significant growth, year-on-year growth, and you had to put a plan in place?
Yeah, look, it was off like my brother and I took over in 2007. That's when we officially took ownership and we bought the business.
Mm-hmm.
It was almost overnight. Like there were some things that were burning us in the way that our parents were managing it. The whole yellow pages is the way we should go. And we were doing Google advertising then. We actually were Google's first advertiser in 2003 when they launched. And so then, I come up with that concept of getting on board with Google. So I was kind of championing that. And I was trying to push them to do more. And they were like, no. So pretty much when we took over, we took off all budgeting, no budgeting on spend as much as you want on Google.
Who was tracking that?
Well, see, this is a thing, right? We had a formula, which is why being young, I was a little unsure of where was I getting this wrong? Like, I was like, we shouldn't have a budget. Why do we have a budget? And they're like, well, you don't want to spend too much. I'm like, but every dollar we spend makes us 10. Well, spend as much dollars as you can spend.
Exactly.
Right? As many $1 as I can spend, I want to spend as many of them as possible because every time I spend something, I'm making more. I'm making a profit from that. And that's where I couldn't understand. I was like, no, let's take the budgets off, see what happens. We took it off, slowly, I would say. Like, we took it off a few campaigns, and then we noticed that was working, and the P&L was still looking good, and took it off, and so we really accelerated. But it went to triple-digit growth overnight. The other thing we did at the time, it'll sound like a stupid idea, but we had like freight to each like region or location. Back then, this is before like all these shipping solutions that are available today. Back then, we had to build it.
Remember, this is 2007 we're talking about. Like, that was... Did we even have internet on our phones? And I don't think we did, because my daughter was born in 2008. This is how I reference everything. And I remember having to buy a prepaid dongle to take to the hospital to send the photos to my husband's family in England. So we didn't even have internet on our phones back then.
No, we had the old, the Nokias were the big thing, right?
Yeah.
It was so cool if you had a Nokia. And so we took off the budgets, and we had shipping. So like at the time, and this was pioneering, by the way, as well. We had, $20 to Queensland, $30 to Perth, $50 to regional WA. Did you just
make those numbers up?
No.
Was that actually costed out?
No, that's roughly about what there were. And we costed it out. We worked out like, WA was X per kilo, and I think the order's going to be this. Like, we were being very risk averse. And so was every other retailer that was kind of, not many were around to use as a case study, but some, other people were doing similar things. Most people, to be honest, were like, call us for shipping.
Yes.
We were like, let's automate it. Well, let's make it $50 to Perth, and just, it is what it is. And some people, I just don't want people calling us. Let's cut down on the calls. We decided to make it $9.95 nationwide. And I tell you what, at the time, that was like a massive uproar. Like, the industry was pissed at us. They were like, how dare you? Like, how can you ship to Perth for $9? That's just crazy. And people were calling us. People were lodging complaints, like other party stores. They were like, you can't do this. It's illegal. It's like, not illegal. What are you talking about? Like, how is it illegal? They're like, it's unfair competition, blah, blah. And it's like, they're like,
you're not a cartel.
Yeah,
unless you've gone into collusion with the shipping providers.
So this whole concept was just like, it caused major controversy. And like, now you're like, I don't understand how that was controversial. But, at the time, it was like revolutionary. And the whole idea was just like, look, our average shipping cost nationally is costing us $10, but why charge $50 to Perth? We're alienating those customers. Let's just subsidise it, cross-subsidise it, and absorb some of the cost. And I think we'll get more sales. It was just that simple, right? And so we did it. And again, sales went through the roof because everyone in Perth didn't have access to a party store, and it was $9.95 shipping there. And and all these regional areas were like, oh, every other party store, if they found one other than us, which there wasn't many, made you call, and it was too much friction.
It was difficult, yeah.
Too hard.
So did you run this as a test first? Like, did you say, we have to come out cost neutral on because my brain, of course, is because I was in business then too, and we used to have flat rate $9.95 shipping. We probably got it off you. But I used to like almost be physically sick when someone would, I'd get like a $70 bill from Australia Post to post something. And back then I wasn't actually smart enough to sit down and work out the cost benefit analysis of that one order and repeat business and all that kind of stuff. But who was sitting there working out whether this was financially okay?
No one, I guess. And this is where the problem started coming later down the line, which I guess we'll get to. But we just went, oh, look, it sounds like a good idea. I mean, at the time, you got to probably consider the scale of the business. Like we were, sub $500,000 the store itself was trading. We had one employee, two maybe, and me and my brother. And I was working full-time for Woolworths at the time. So, that was the team. And so we just thought, oh, I'll just go in after work and pick orders if we get more orders. So we did it and we got a whole bunch of orders. And then I was in there picking till midnight every night. And then we got friends and family that come in and pick as volume grows. So we were kind of just like, oh, well, it's working. We tried it. So we didn't put much thought into trying because, if we doubled our orders, we were like, we can handle it. So we just did it. It worked. We then picked all night. And then that's when, I think we'll fast forward a little bit, like that's when the problems started to arise. So we started to scale, started to grow. We started hiring people. They weren't as efficient as us. We weren't following costs and all that sort of stuff. We didn't care about costs. We just, the P&L, you said we made money. So if we made money at the end of the year, that's all we need to worry about.
Can I jump in and ask? Yeah. Were you guys paying yourselves a set wage at this point? Or were you just taking what was left over? We
were making pretty good money, so it kind of didn't matter. So yes, I wouldn't say we were paying a wage, but there was profit there to fund a pretty fun party lifestyle that me and my brother had. So we were pretty comfortable. So everything was just going into the bank account. The bank account just kept growing, but then that's when some problems started to arise. So we started getting pretty big, and we started trying to scale. So it was like, as we grew, we were picking, till midnight, and we're like, this just can't keep going. So let's hire people. We started hiring people. That was too much. We took on extra space. We added more computers. We added more people. It was just a cycle. Added more people, ran out of space, add more stations, need more people. And we just kept running into the same issues over and over as we kept growing. They just kept getting bigger, the problems. And that's when cracks started to appear because we weren't really looking at financials. We were just, to be honest, we had a problem that was a dream problem, which was we found growing easy. What we found difficult was keeping up with that. And that was our problem, keeping up with the volume. And then we hit that, I think, second Halloween when volume just went through the roof because Halloween's a big time of year and we were smashing it. And we couldn't cope. So we barely scraped through Halloween. But then Christmas was next.
So what kind of problems were you, obviously you had people who were picking and packing who weren't as efficient. Was it a time thing or was it the wrong orders were going out?
We just didn't have the capacity to pick the orders. So we were having delays and, we were picking late. We were taking 3 days, 4 days. And we got to a point, to be honest, it started going. So, we were 3 days behind, 4 days behind, trying to pick expresses only, 5 days behind, 6 days behind, 7 days behind. And it got to a point where we went, put the brakes, let's just sit down and have a chat. Because we were picking till like 2, 3 a.m., waking up at 6 a.m. and starting again, sleeping in the store. Like it had all our friends in there helping us. It was a bad time, I would say, in terms of like personal, the pressure on personal health and all that sort of stuff was intense. And we just went, look, we've got to stop. We've got to shut this all down. Otherwise, we can't even pick. We're going to take another month to pick the orders we even have here. Let alone what's coming through the door for the next couple of weeks for Christmas. We have to shut it down. So we shut it down. We shut down the whole website. No more orders.
At peak time?
At peak, just because we were like, we could just see that we're like, oh, we could be in like legal battles. What are we going to have? We don't service these customers. We've taken their money. We haven't provided them the product. They've got parties. They've got weddings and we're going to ruin their weddings. And so we were just like, shut it down. We lost hundreds of thousands of dollars. And it was heartbreaking. And we said, don't let that happen again. I'll cut a long story short because I could talk about this all day, but we let it happen again. We tried the next 6 months to be better prepared, and then it still was too big, the volume. So
what did you implement? Like you said the picking and the packing and the efficiency, like we were talking earlier about growing broke. It doesn't sound like revenue was an issue for you at the time.
Not at all, no.
But What did you feel like you needed to address to fix this? Like, you're saying you were already hiring more people and you were already getting more pickers and packers and computers and all the things. Now that you've got lots of years of experience, decades of years of experience, if you could go back now knowing what you know, what would you have done differently?
Yeah, so it took us 3 goes to get it, to figure out how to deal with this. So it took us I can't even remember if it was 2 or 3 years of, definitely 2 years of closing the website down. And it was more that we were reactionaries. Essentially, we were like, okay, let's fix this. Let's go and build a bunch more computers, make the website a bit more efficient. And it's like, the third time it was like, no, we need to forecast what is it going to be and make sure whatever the plan, we'll cope with that. Not just we'll do more, we'll pick longer, we'll hire more people. What is the number we're going to hit this year in terms of volume? Let's figure it out. And then let's build around that. And that's what we did. And that's what saved us the third time round.
You reverse engineered it. We have in our scale.
Sounds fundamental. Program. It's pretty horrible, right? You're like, oh, I'm a failure.
No, but it's not, because no one teaches you this stuff.
No.
And that reverse engineering, like even just being able to forecast, being able to say, actually, if I hit $1 million, 2 million, 5, 10, what things am I going to need? So that you can say, all right, well, when we hit X dollars, we're going to put the money aside for that, or we're going to hire that extra person, or we're going to bring this in or do this thing. If you don't even have a concept of what that looks like, then you end up exactly where you were.
Yeah, and that's the fundamental. And the more important part was contingency planning. What if it's up 20%? What if it's up 50%? What if it's down 20%? What if it's down 50%? What is our plan for coping? Because trying to forecast was pretty hard when we were growing at triple-digit growth. So we're like, I don't even know what the number's going to be. Okay, well, let's pick a number what we think it is, and let's double that and see how we would deal with that. And how do we have a plan to deal with if it doubles? How do we have a plan if it's half what we think it is? And coming up with all of that in advance was what made the difference. So really detailed planning. And now we plan on steroids in terms of planning our year, planning on seasons, because, as a business, we have Halloween, Oktoberfest, Easter, St. Patrick's Day. We're planning each of those 4 months in advance. So right now we're on the tail end of Easter, and it's August,
wow.
and we've finished planning our Easter. So we do it on steroids now. There's about 30 of those events on our calendar. So it's I wouldn't say it's a well-oiled machine, but because people internally will be like, yeah, it feels like it's still crap, but certainly I think we do it pretty well, and we've got a good plan around it. We've got a whole bunch of systems and processes that ensure we don't miss stuff and we don't stuff it up.
And are the big things that you do around those times just hiring the seasonal picking staff? Like, is that the majority of where the extra resources are?
It's a whole matrix. So, like, for example, like we've got the 30, think of like a matrix with 30 seasons across down the side, and then a bunch of tasks. So each of the seasons have the same task, like you said, hiring, merchandising, when stock coming in, how are we managing that? How are we managing, like each of those departments has their own set of plans around every single season. So just as an easy example, like inventory management and ordering, the buyer will do the buying early on, 9 months out or 12 months out. But then you'll have, suppliers are out of stock, or stuff doesn't get manufactured, or stuff doesn't get on the boat, and checking on, following up, checking on those things. What points do we check that? What plans do we have to adapt to those problems? When the stock comes in, how is it merchandised? What space is it going to take up in the store? Is it a front end? Is it one end? Is it a whole, like Halloween is like half a floor for us. So, that's a very different plan on Halloween to say Easter, which is just the front of the store. So, yeah, having a plan around each of those and a set of tasks, what timing they need to be hit, what questions need to be asked, and just making sure it's all documented, I guess, to some extent so that we can manage it.
Do you ever think your university 20-year-old self would have been having conversations about matrices, whatever the plural of a matrix is?
I was pretty arrogant as a kid. I mean, I had that idealistic mindset that I could change the world, and that anything could be achieved if you believed it was possible, and that I was capable of anything. And I had that optimism and aggressiveness to me that just thought I could. So I actually did. I did have that idea that I wanted to conquer the world as a university student. And I did love spreadsheets. I did love all that stuff. That stuff all came sort of kind of naturally. I mean, I did pretty well at uni and scored high marks, not because I did study pretty well, but just because I enjoyed the subject and I enjoyed the challenge and I loved learning it. So I think that all culminated into, the fact that I tackle things the way I tackle them, I guess.
When you're making these financial decisions, growth decisions, where you're going to invest your money, how do you weigh up like cost, benefit, best practice, all those kinds of things? Because I've just come from Reed gift fairs and the amount of conversations I had around, in this case, inventory management, where I was asking people, had they actually forecasted what they needed to buy for Christmas? Had they gone through their website or their POS and worked out how much jewelry did they need? How many pieces of clothing? What kinds of pieces of clothing? Or how many cushions or whatever that looked like for them? And no one said yes. Every person had come with a budget, but they hadn't gone to divvy out, well, I know that I sell 50% of my Christmas stock is jewelry, so I'm going to make sure I buy at least 50% of my budget towards jewelry. How do you make those financial decisions? Because it sounds like you're in charge of that kind of stuff.
Yeah, look, so my background, like I said, I left university and I went and got a job at Woolworths as a business analyst, which has helped me really well, which is kind of the reason we took over the business, because my brother was like, look, I manage people, you love spreadsheets, seems like a good marriage, let's get together and do this. So, I do like building a business case for things. I mean, there has to be some level of entrepreneurial, and I love saying you don't know what you don't know, because there's always stuff that comes out of the woodwork with things. But I guess it's probably a big conversation for a 4-hour podcast. But I guess to narrow it down, I guess there's an element of I wouldn't say I hate best practice. I think best practice is good to know. I hate the pressure that brings by calling it best practice. Because everyone thinks, I've got to do all of that stuff. Like what's best, let's not call it best practice, what's best for a micro business versus a large business is very different. What goals you want to achieve from your lifestyle, from what you want to get out of your business is different for everybody. And I think that will impact the decisions that are best for each business, And as a small business, I mean, when we were tiny, we were hacking a little bit more. We were doing things on a budget. We didn't have the Rolls Royce for everything. I built everything myself in spreadsheets. And I think that's okay when you're tiny to have it held together by sticky tape like that. But I think as you grow, you start needing to put in more robust systems, more best practice, we'll call it. But I think, there is this illusion that you have to be best practice at everything. And, I think that's where people get tripped up, particularly when they're trying to grow. Because they go, I need to be best practice in e-commerce, so I need to offer Afterpay, I need to offer free returns, I need to offer free shipping, I need to have personalization software, I need to have every plugin there is that does something that's good for you. And when you add up all those costs, it's costing you millions of dollars and the sales aren't there.
Yeah.
And it doesn't work, So I think you've got to weigh everything up with a cost benefit and say, if I add this, what's the benefit? I mean, as an example, we don't offer Afterpay. I'm probably going to this could cause some controversy, but we'll go down that hole anyway. But, I wouldn't say that, I think Afterpay is absolutely essential for some businesses. For me, it's a tough call because I'm going, well, if I offer Afterpay for starters, I'm going to possibly 30% to 50% of my existing customers are going to use it, which is going to cost me additional margin because everyone knows Afterpay is the most expensive option. So I'm going to give away free margin of a very, I don't make, my profit margin's not 50% or anything. It's like net profit. We're talking in the under 10% numbers.
Yeah, I was going to say about 10% probably.
And so giving away an extra 3% for a payment option that, for every customer that buys from me is horrendous for the bottom line. So I've got to weigh up, is that going to bring me extra customers? I already offer 3 or 4 now pay laters, which are half the price. Is that cannibalization worth the additional? And I've decided no, and look, I know there's some people in fashion and that it's just, it's a ticket to the game. They have to offer Afterpay other people. Otherwise, people won't shop with them. But in my industry, look, I could be wrong. Some people would disagree with me, but I don't think we need to offer it. So we don't. And that's a cost decision. It's not, I think what would be best is to offer Afterpay. What is the best cost decision here is not to offer it, in my opinion. So, and that's just because I can't find the math to support. If I cannibalize that much sales and that's the cost, the benefits, I just can't see them. I can't see them offsetting that cost. Free shipping's another one, I mean, it's a bugbear for me. If I offer free shipping, there goes, just argument's sake, 10% of my revenue. Yeah. To get back that profitability, I've got to sell another like let's say if my sales were just hypothetically $1 million and I give away 100,000 in like I'm already recovering 100,000 in freight from the customer, I've got to sell another $1 million. I've got to double my sales to get back
to pay it,
that
the
freight
cash
cost. Yeah, so it just,
I know,
from a profit decision, it just doesn't stack up for me. So we don't offer free shipping. And look, we may not have scaled as big. Like, I mean, some people say, but if you offer free shipping, you get more sales. Yeah, I'll get more sales, but they'll be less profit. I'll be less profitable.
but less profit.
So I want to stay more profitable, you know?
This is the perfect segue to the next conversation I want to have with you, because it's the exact opposite of what people think you are saying, which is like, I don't believe I should have to give away my money. Let's talk about marketplaces, because you and I pretty much agree on marketplaces. I want to talk about how they have helped you scale your brand, why you're prepared to give 10 to 30% of every sale to a marketplace, but yet you won't give up 6% to Afterpay and you won't give up the dollars to free shipping. Explain that to the people listening.
Yeah, so I guess just in terms of the math there, we say Afterpay versus a marketplace. You know, I guess what I'm looking at marketplace is saying, well, that's bringing me a customer I wouldn't ordinarily have. With Afterpay, I'm questioning how much they're going to bring to me as a result of offering it. And I don't think they'll bring that much. It's more customers are going to say, oh, I'm already here. You know, there are definitely benefits with buy now, pay later on slightly increased basket size, slightly better conversion rate. But we're talking small points. We're not talking, you know, I don't think we're talking enough to offset the 4 to 6% that they charge. That's my personal view. With a marketplace, however, yeah, I'm paying 10%, which is a lot more, right? But their sales I don't have, and I can afford that if they're bringing me every single customer. I can afford that with digital marketing. I can afford to spend that level if it's going to bring me a customer. I can't afford that if I've already got the customer and it's just absorbing. So it's kind of like Afterpay, I would say, is on top of, rather than these other things are just like they're doing everything. They're doing the checkout, they're doing the payment. So I don't pay the merchant fee. All that sort of stuff is absorbed within a marketplace. So I guess that's kind of the reason we're doing a lot with marketplaces. Look, we had a run at marketplaces about 10 years ago, maybe. When I say run at marketplace, we had a run at eBay.
Yeah. Which has changed a lot in 10 years, let's be honest. Their whole focus, their whole business model has changed in 10 years.
Yeah, and I don't want to give away too much IP, but just a little bit in terms of we struggled to make it work back then and be profitable, so we cut it, and that cost us a lot of sales, but they weren't profitable sales, so we got rid of them. More recently, we've become more efficient. We found better ways of doing things. We found better ways of listing and more efficient ways of being on marketplaces. And obviously, the technology's come a long way and the market's come a long way in the last 10 years. So we found a way to do it profitably, which is now why we dipped our toe back in about middle of last year. So 12 months, more than 12 months ago now, we dipped our toe back in. That was running profitably. We expanded it a little. It kept running profitably. And then we went, right, we found the formula, which is a bit like what I said when we did, Google, 20 years ago, when uncapped the budget. We kind of did that same thing here. We've dipped our toe in, it's working, we've got a formula. Now let's go the formula as hard as possible. And which is why we're now rolling out on every possible marketplace we can. We're on, 6 at the moment. Another 2 will come on board in the next couple of weeks. There's another 4 contracts I've already signed, so they'll come on board over the next 3 to 4 months. We kind of ideally want to be on 20 at some point. I had eyed it off for this year, but I can't see that happening at the speed we're going, because just each marketplace has a different complexity, and there is time involved in optimizing marketplaces. But yeah, we've been scaling that now, and that's where we're seeing growth.
And I want to be really clear here is, for the most part, you resell other people's stuff.
For the most part,
just like the people who are listening here, for the most part, you're buying stuff in that's not your own. So your margins are just like everyone else's margins. Maybe you get a little bit more because you're buying volume. I don't know. But realistically, there's no difference between you and somebody else who's also selling party supplies, other than the fact that I can now find your thing in 16 different places rather than just on a website.
That's right. Yeah, 100%.
So, and I'm not asking to give any intellectual property here away, but in terms of one of my big positives for marketplaces is the fact that they are doing all the customer acquisition. They're doing the advertising. They're spending their money to get your product in front of other people.
Yeah.
So, and that tends to come with a 10 to sometimes up to 30%, depending on which marketplace you're in, cost. And a lot of people will say, but hold on, if I've only got 50% margin and I have to give 30% of away, that only leaves me 20%. I'm kind of like, well, 20% of something is better than 100% of nothing.
Absolutely.
But how does that weigh up for you, or sorry, not necessarily for you, in your experience towards your own customer acquisition? Because what I'm thinking and what I've experienced is for most e-commerce brands, customer acquisition cost is going to be more than 30% of the sale, the first sale. And you're banking on customer lifetime value to give you your money back.
Yeah, lifetime value is a tricky one, but yeah, absolutely. You're banking on that sale paying off the cost. Lifetime value, you're right, is something, but that, probably I guess what I want to do is break it down a little bit simpler. Mm-hmm. Like, I guess what we learned, the reason we scaled, Google Ads in 2007 when we took over and just took off the budgets is because we had a formula and we said, okay, well, this is our we knew what our conversion rate, we knew what dollar values we're getting from our ad spend. But what we did differently, I guess, to other people is that we broke down our balance sheet. Well, we did this a little bit later down the track, but we went and analyzed our P&L and said, okay, what costs are variable, what costs are fixed, what are direct, what are indirect, all that sort of stuff. We broke it right down to work out what does it cost us to service a customer. And just as a average numbers, if our average order is $100, our cost of goods, let's just say, is 50. So we're left with $50 gross profit. If all our picking costs and customer service and all that stuff to service that order works out to be $40, I'm left with 10. Then let's just say $30. I'm left with 20. That's what I can afford to spend on marketing. So we went, right, as long as we're spending less than 20 for every customer that we acquire from Google, spend as much. If it's $10, spend as many $10 as you can because I'm making 10 difference. If it's 15, I'm still making 5. If it's 19, I'm still making 1. I'll take 1.
You'll take 1.
Yeah, I'll take 1. Like you said, I'd rather take 1 than none, right? And that 1 times 2 million long tail keywords adds up. So that's kind of the mentality back then. Now, we just apply that to marketplace. It's the exact same formula. It's just going, this is our average order with that marketplace, and it's a lot lower because on marketplaces, people don't tend to buy a whole basket like they do with us. They buy $30, which is why marketplaces didn't work with us when we first got on board. So the average dollar value, let's just for easy numbers again, say it's $50. We've got to pay 25 of that is cost of goods. So we're left with 25. We've got to pay, what's 10%? Let's just say 10% marketplace fee, $5 there with them.
Yeah, $5, yeah.
And that's what we're left with, and there's a profit there. And once we build in, so we've actually, since then we actually organised our P&L so that I can easily allocate those costs. So I don't have fixed and variable costs in, for example, bank fees. I've got bank fees and then I've got merchant fees because merchant fees are variable, bank fees are fixed. And so just having your P&L broken up like that, so you can easily pull those things out, do a formula, and work out what are your costs of service, we'll call it, costs. Meant that I could work out what's the variable. So like if I made $1 profit, like I said, that $1 is going towards paying off my fixed costs. And eventually when the fixed costs are paid off, then it's profit. But I'd still rather $1 than nothing paying off those fixed costs and nothing contributing to profit. So that's kind of, I guess, the background behind scaling, whether it be advertising for us or marketplaces.
And it really just comes down to not being scared of the numbers. Like too many people don't want to look at those numbers. Because even if there is money coming in, they're worried that there's not as much money as they thought. They're not as profitable as they thought. Maybe I'm doing something wrong. Instead of actually saying it objectively, Bill Gates or someone said, all feedback is good feedback, even if it's bad. Yeah. And we try and adopt that too. Like if someone gives us a criticism, it's like, oh, okay, that person wasn't happy. So what do we need to do to fix it? Rather than, screw you. Sometimes it is a bit of a screw you, but the fact was there was a situation there that the expectation didn't meet what they were after. And it's the same with money. It's like, if you don't know the answer to that question, then how do you ever make money?
Yeah, I mean, to quote it relevant, just going through the pandemic, Trump said, we've got so many cases. If we want to reduce the cases, let's stop testing. So, that's keeping your head in the sand, not actually knowing what the problem is. I'd rather know what the problem is and try to figure out how to deal with it than just pretend it's not there. And I think that's exactly what you're saying there. It's like, well, you know, you need to understand it to be able to deal with it. And if you don't look at it, look, you might be okay. Some entrepreneurs just don't look at the numbers and don't care and just check at the end of the year. And I just think you're gambling if you're doing that. It might work, it might not. But
and how do you know what to fix? Because what I tend to find is if you fix the thing that's broken, like that's our whole 5 pillars. If you work on the thing that is sucking at the moment in your business, sometimes a whole bunch of problems just disappear. Absolutely. Because they were symptoms of that original cause. And it's, again, if you're saying, well, I'm not getting the conversions on my website, I'm not getting the traffic to my store, it might not necessarily be that there's anything wrong with your website. And I see people, I need a whole website rebrand because it's not converting. I'm like, no, can we actually just look at the money first? Because maybe you just need to put your price up $1 and then all of a sudden 100%. You're profitable.
Yeah. I mean, another key thing is just to measure stuff, right? Like if you start measuring stuff, I just love people when we talk to some people, like if you measure it, it'll improve. It's just so true, right? If you just, it's just so, like, just because you're measuring it, people know you're measuring it and they focus on it. I encourage everyone to just try it. If there's a KPI that you find that you want to improve, just track it and put it up on a wall. And you'll just find by doing almost nothing. I mean, things happen subconsciously, I believe, and that's why, but almost nothing, it still improves. It's because the fact that you're measuring
because you're aware of it.
Become aware of it. It affects your daily decision making. It's in the back of your mind. It's there in everything you do. And I think that's another key thing to think about.
I want to, because you and I could talk for ages and we've been talking for a while, but before we finish up, I want to ask you about pricing, because you guys are not the cheapest. You're the biggest store in Australia, but you're not the cheapest. You're on marketplaces, but you're not the cheapest. Yeah. So how do you think your customers, I guess, justify, like, why are they okay with shopping with the party people, even though you're not the cheapest?
I guess in a way, the most important thing for the customer is not exactly price in our category. I think it's more about the fact that they're having a party and you want to make that easy for them. That's what's more important to our customer. So, like you said, I mean, packet of party hats being $3 or $4, less important than if I'm having a frozen party, being able to get the frozen party hats and the napkins and the plates and the cups and 200 other items that we offer being there as an option. And especially if you're curating a party and you want certain items, being able to access the products that you want is more important to our customer than price, which is why we do what we do. Look, it's a bit different on Marketplace because people buy one at a time. We probably should be more price competitive on Marketplace, but for now, we've decided not to touch that and remain where we are and let the market play out. I mean, I just find that there's always someone willing to take a loss to gain market share. Even in my business, there's always someone ranking above us on Google AdWords. There's always someone taking a loss, paying $10 a click to be up there or whatever it is. There's always someone willing to do that. And if you always compete with that, you'll go broke just like they do often. Or you notice they don't keep doing it forever. I guess that's the key part. They can only do it for so much and they can only lose so much money. So they can only do that for so long. And, I think what's more important is to play the long game. And, for us, that's working with customers, having the right ranges, having the right products there and thinking less about price and more about, just helping people have parties better, essentially.
And that translates to every industry. And again, I see this too often. And just even in this conversations we're having at Reed, it's like people saying, I can't afford to have multiples of things. So I buy like one in each size. But realistically, if you're not you'd be better off curating the range because, like you're saying, but now I want the shirt and the top, or I want the cushion and the throw, but you only bought one, so now now it's out of stock. So I'll just go somewhere else. So even though you do now have an extensive range, it sounds to me like you're saying it really is about curating to make sure that you can service your customer as best possible without them having to go somewhere else to find what they need.
Yeah, like a good example is 100th birthday for us is a category. You don't sell much.
Surely there's not too many of those.
Well, that's my point, right? The sales are pretty horrible in that category. And it would not justify stocking those ranges, or at least half the products in that range at least. But we stock it regardless of the sales because that's what our customers expect is that they can come to us and get a 100th birthday. And you know what? I mean, we've probably got let's just say they come in and they see the banner and they want a 100th birthday banner. Very few people will buy just the banner. They spend $100.
Yeah.
And whether it's on balloons or they might not even want to say 100, but that brings them into the store and then they buy $100 worth of stuff. So, I think that's why it works for us, is that it's not always about what products generate the most revenue. It's also about kind of understanding what, I guess, like we pick products that will bring people into our store that will then shop the rest of the range, rather than thinking about whether it's going to make enough revenue for that product to justify its existence, if that makes sense. So it's a delicate balance, but
it is, and it's you or someone in your team looking at it and saying, well, if someone bought the 100th birthday banner, the basket size that went with that was average order of $150. So whilst the actual product might have only been, I don't know, $30, we know that brings people in. So it is having that almost granular knowledge of your products, or having someone on your team who has that granular knowledge or who can run the numbers to say, most people who buy this also want this, this, and this. So next time we go and do our buying, let's not get as many things, but let's get a better curation together so that the customers will spend more money.
Yeah, I mean, often I might look at things, let's say, for example, someone, like I said, 100th birthday, we might have an option of 2 different banners. It's like, instead of getting 2 different banners, get a napkin or get something different, even though the 2 banners might be fantastic. It's like, nah, we only need 1 banner. That's what's going to help people get into the store. And then let's create some variety and create a whole story around it, rather than picking just what's best selling.
Yeah.
Because the 2 banners might be the 2 best selling products, but we can cut that down to 1 and get a different product that will bring someone else in. I think that's more important.
I really wanted to talk to you about innovation and collaboration, but we've now been talking to each other for an hour. So I feel like let's finish up here, and we'll have to get you back on the show to talk about all the things that you guys have done in addition to what we've spoken about to grow the brand, but so many things to take away for the people listening here. So thank you so much for sharing.
No, it was great to be here, Selena. So it was good fun.
All right. And if you need party supplies, check out thepartypeople.com.au.
Yep, that's it.
Do you ship internationally?
Oh, not really. No. It's something we've actually pulled back on. Yeah.
The cost-benefit analysis was not in favour.
That's right. Although we're starting to do some marketplace stuff in New Zealand now, so,
Yeah, there's always Amazon FBA. And
That's right. So who knows?
All right. I look forward to hearing all about it. Thanks, Dean.
Good to chat. Thanks.
So that's a wrap. I'd love to hear what insight you've gotten from this episode and how you're going to put it into action. If you're a social kind of person, follow me at @TheSelenaKnight and make sure to leave a comment and let me know. And if this episode made you think a little bit differently, or gave you some inspiration, or perhaps gave you the kick that you needed to take action, then please take a couple of minutes to leave me a review on your platform of choice. Because the more reviews the show gets, the more independent retail and e-commerce stores just like yours that we can help to scale. And when that happens, it's a win for you, a win for your community, and a win for your customers. I'll see you on the next episode.